not a story about money. This is a story about illusion. Because money can be earned again. Illusions, once broken, leave scars that never fully heal. People believe meeting powerful people changes your life. They're right, but no one tells you that sometimes the change is a slow erasing. Not loud, not sudden, quiet. I didn't know the day I met him would be the day my life began to disappear. At that time, I thought loss only meant money. I didn't know it could mean identity. I didn't know it could mean silence inside your own heart. Everyone admired him. They spoke his name carefully, like it carried weight. They said he was self-made, visionary, a genius, a billionaire. And when I stood in the same room as him, I felt something dangerous. Hope. Before him, my life was small, but it was mine. I woke up early, worked honestly, returned home tired, but peaceful. I wasn't rich, but my sleep was deep. I wasn't famous, but my words still mattered. I had a mother who prayed for me. A family that trusted me. A mirror that didn't accuse me. I didn't chase luxury, I chased stability. And stability feels boring until it's taken away. The invitation came casually. Come with me, a friend said. You should meet someone important. I didn't hesitate, because power looks harmless when you've never been burned by it. He didn't enter loudly. No dramatic walk, no flashy clothes, just silence following him. The room adjusted its breathing. People leaned forward when he spoke. Agreed before thinking, laughed a second too early. When his eyes met mine, he smiled. Not warmly, not coldly, measured. That smile made me feel seen, chosen, special, and that was my first mistake. He asked what I did for a living. I answered honestly. He listened quietly. Then he said something simple, you think too small. It didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like opportunity. Those 4 words followed me home. Suddenly, my peaceful life looked slow, ordinary, limited. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was unhappy, but because I had started wanting what I didn't need. And that's how it begins. Not with greed, not with crime, but with dissatisfaction planted carefully by someone who profits from it. I hadn't lost anything yet, but I had already started losing contentment. And once contentment dies, everything else follows. The first offer. The next time I saw him, it wasn't planned. Or at least, it felt that way. He called my friend and said, bring him along. Just like that. No explanation, no urgency. But I felt important. We met at a quiet place. Not luxurious, not public. Power doesn't need decoration. He spoke about business like it was a game. Numbers didn't excite him. People did. He watched reactions more than faces. Listened to pauses more than words. Then he looked at me and said, I like how you listen. That sentence felt better than any compliment I'd received before. He asked about my dreams. I told him honestly, I wanted stability, security, respect. He smiled. That's small, he said gently. But safe people think small. Then he leaned back and added, I can change your life. Not loudly, not dramatically, casually, as if offering water. He offered me a chance to work with him. Not a job, not a contract, an opportunity. That word is dangerous when spoken by powerful people. He said I wouldn't need to quit my work. Not yet, just observe, he said. Learn how real money moves. I asked what he wanted in return. He laughed. Loyalty, he said, and silence. I didn't understand what that meant. If I had, I would have walked away. At first, everything felt harmless. Meetings, conversations, introductions. I started sitting in rooms I never imagined entering. I heard people talk about millions the way others talk about groceries. Something inside me shifted. My old life felt distant. My old worries felt childish. Slowly, I stopped sharing details with my family. Not because I was hiding, but because they wouldn't understand. That's what I told myself. But truth sounds different when spoken honestly. The billionaires started testing me. Small things. Don't mention this to anyone. Be here at this time. Cancel your plans. Each time I obeyed, nothing bad happened. So obedience started feeling safe. Rewarded. He praised my discipline, my commitment. You're different, he said once. You don't ask too many questions. That should have scared me. Instead, it made me proud. My mother noticed the change. You're quieter, she said. Far away. I said I was busy. Busy building a future. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't building anything. I was being shaped. The first real loss came quietly. I missed a family gathering. Then another. I stopped answering calls immediately. Then stopped calling back. Peace was replaced by pressure. Sleep by planning. But I told myself this was growth. That's the lie ambition tells you when it borrows your soul. One night, he said something that changed everything. You're ready for the next level. I felt proud. Then he added, there are things you can't unsee once you step there. I didn't ask what he meant. Because part of me already knew. And part of me didn't care. That night, I stood at the edge of a line. And instead of stepping back, I stepped forward. Crossing the line. The next level didn't look dark at first. It never does. It looked professional, organized, quiet. I was invited into meetings where decisions were already made before anyone spoke. My role was simple. Watch, listen, remember. Details matter, he told me. Especially the ones no one writes down. That's when I realized, this wasn't about money. Money was just the reward. Control was the goal. I started seeing how favors worked. How laws bent without breaking. How problems disappeared without solutions. Nothing illegal on paper. Everything questionable in reality. People called him brilliant. They didn't see the cost. Or maybe they did, and chose not to look. I told myself, I was just observing. That I wasn't responsible. That lie helped me sleep for a while. Then came the first test. A document. A signature. Nothing dramatic. Just a small adjustment. This helps everyone, he said. And hurts no one. I hesitated. He didn't pressure me. He just waited. Silence is powerful when you want approval. I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. After that, things changed. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was included, invited, trusted. But trust from powerful people is never free. Every favor became a thread. Every silence became a knot. I started measuring words, avoiding honesty. My laughter felt practiced. My smiles felt borrowed. My family noticed. You're not the same, my mother said again. This time, I felt irritated. How dare she question progress? That's when I knew something inside me was breaking. Because love should never feel like an obstacle. The billionaire called me late one night. You're doing well, he said. But remember, distance creates loyalty. I didn't ask what he meant. The next day, my responsibilities doubled. My availability became expected. My independence quietly disappeared. I stopped going home early. Stopped answering questions. Stopped explaining myself. Because explanations invite judgment, and judgment threatens illusions. The real loss wasn't immediate. It was gradual, like erosion. My peace left first. Then my patience. Then my sense of right and wrong. I justified everything by saying I was building something big. But deep down, I knew. I was losing something priceless. And the worst part? I was still proud. Then came the moment that changed how I saw him forever. A conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. He said my name. And laughed. That laugh didn't sound powerful. It sounded careless. As if I was a tool, already owned. That's when I realized, I didn't meet a mentor. I met a mirror that reflected everything I was willing to sacrifice. And I didn't like what I saw anymore. Owned. After that laugh, nothing felt the same. Once you see how someone truly sees you, you can't unsee it. I started noticing patterns. How he remembered details about me only when they were useful. How praise appeared, right before pressure. How silence followed resistance. I wasn't a partner. I was an asset. Control didn't arrive as orders. It arrived as expectations. Be available. Be flexible. Be grateful. I canceled family plans without thinking. Ignored calls without guilt. Because I had been trained to believe my time no longer belonged to me. One evening, I tried to push back. I said I needed a break. He didn't argue. He smiled. You're free to leave, he said calmly. But freedom has consequences. That sentence sat heavy. Because I knew too much. Silence had already tied me to him. Sleep stopped feeling like rest. Every night, my mind replayed conversations. What I said, what I didn't say. Fear became background noise. Not loud. Constant. My mother confronted me. I don't recognize you anymore, she said. You used to speak with honesty. I wanted to explain. But explaining meant admitting. I had made a mistake. And pride is louder than truth when you're already sinking. I started lying. Small lies. Then larger ones. Not to protect him. To protect the image I had built around myself. That's when I understood. The illusion wasn't just his. It was mine too. The billionaire introduced me to others like him. Men who smiled easily. Women who spoke carefully. Everyone pretending they were in control. No one was. One night, I was asked to deliver a message. Not written. Not recorded. Just words. Words that would ruin someone. I asked why. He said, because power needs reminders. I delivered the message. And when I came home, I washed my hands longer than usual. As if guilt could be rinsed away. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question. I had avoided for months. When did I stop being a good person? There was no answer, just silence. The next morning, he called. "Congratulations," he said, "you've proven loyalty." I didn't feel proud. I felt trapped. Because loyalty, once proven, is expected forever. I realized then, leaving wouldn't be simple, not because of contracts, not because of money, but because of what I knew. And knowledge, in the wrong hands, is a cage. The first price. I didn't decide to escape all at once. Escape begins quietly, with hesitation, with delay, with questions you don't ask out loud. I started taking longer to reply, arriving later than expected, offering fewer opinions. I told myself, I was reclaiming space. What I didn't realize was, space is seen as rebellion by those who expect obedience. The change didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, he called me into his office. No anger, no accusation, just calm. "You seem distracted," he said. "Is something wrong?" I chose my words carefully. "I just need balance." He nodded slowly. "Balance," he repeated, "as long as it doesn't affect loyalty." That was the warning. The consequences didn't come immediately. They never do. First, invitations stopped. Then information arrived late. Then decisions were made without me. I was being pushed outward. Isolated. Controlled. My income dropped suddenly. Opportunities I was promised vanished without explanation. When I asked, he said, "Markets change. But markets don't punish silence. People do." At home, things got worse. My family felt the distance before I did. Arguments replaced conversations. Trust turned into confusion. My mother cried one night without saying a word. That hurt more than any threat. I thought about leaving, really leaving, walking away and accepting the loss. But fear has a voice. It said, "You know too much. You've said too much. You've benefited too much." Fear reminded me that innocence doesn't return just because you want it back. One evening, someone followed me home. Not aggressively, not obviously, just enough to be noticed. Just enough to be understood. The message was clear: distance has consequences. I confronted him. I asked if he was threatening me. He laughed softly. "No," he said, "I'm protecting an investment." That word, investment, that's when I knew. I was never meant to leave. My health began to fail. Headaches. Insomnia. A constant weight in my chest. Doctors said stress. They didn't know stress had a name. I stopped recognizing myself. My voice sounded cautious. My eyes avoided mirrors. I had gained access and lost freedom. Gained proximity and lost peace. Then came the call. That shattered what little illusion remained. He said, "We may need you to take responsibility." I asked for what? He paused. "For something that's about to happen." And in that pause, I understood. Someone else's mistake was about to become mine. The weight of guilt. I didn't sleep that night. Sleep avoids people who know something bad is coming. My phone stayed beside me, screen dark, heart loud. Every sound outside felt suspicious. Every silence felt planned. Morning came without relief. When I arrived, the atmosphere had changed. People avoided eye contact. Conversations stopped when I entered. I wasn't included. I was positioned. He spoke calmly. There had been a deal. Something had gone wrong. Documents would point somewhere. That somewhere was me. Just temporarily, he said. Until things settle. I asked what things meant. He said, truth. I refused. For the first time, I said no. The room went quiet. Not angry quiet. Disappointed quiet. That's worse. He leaned forward. You've already crossed the line, he said. This just makes it official. I told him. I wouldn't take the blame for something I didn't do. He nodded. As you wish, he said. That was the end of the conversation. Or so I thought. Within days, my name surfaced. Questions were asked. Accounts were frozen. Friends stopped calling. Not because they believed the rumors. But because association felt dangerous. My family suffered with me. My mother stopped smiling. Relatives whispered. Doors that once opened now stayed closed. I carried shame that wasn't mine. I realized then, power doesn't destroy you directly. It lets the world do it for them. I tried to reach him. No response. I tried again. Silence. The illusion was gone. So was protection. One night, I stood alone in the same room where I once felt chosen. Now it felt empty, cold. I understood the truth too late. I was never meant to rise. I was meant to absorb impact. And the worst part? He moved on. New faces. New loyal voices. I was forgotten by the man who ruined me. I lost my work, my reputation, my confidence. I lost my voice before I lost my freedom. But loss has stages. And the next stage was darker. Because once reputation dies, the system starts circling. Public collapse. The headlines didn't use my full story. They never do. They used my name, a few words, and assumptions. That was enough. People who never met me decided who I was. People who once praised me pretended they never knew me. Silence became safer than truth. Questions came from everywhere. Authorities, lawyers, strangers pretending to help. Everyone wanted a version of me that fit their narrative. No one wanted the truth. Because the truth was complicated. And powerful people don't like complicated. I spent hours explaining myself to rooms that had already decided. I answered calmly, honestly, but honesty sounds weak when money speaks louder. My savings disappeared fast. Legal fees, delays, waiting, time became expensive, and I had none to spare. My mother aged in front of me. Not from years, from worry. She stopped asking questions. She just prayed. Watching her was worse than any accusation. I tried to rebuild quietly. Applied for work. No one replied. My name followed me. Reputation is a shadow that doesn't leave when the light changes. Friends crossed the street to avoid conversations. Old contacts deleted numbers. I understood. Fear is contagious. One night, I sat alone and replayed every moment. Every warning I ignored. Every silence I accepted. Every time I chose illusion over peace. I wasn't innocent, but I wasn't guilty of what they said. That space in between is where lives are destroyed. I thought about ending everything. Not dramatically, just quietly disappearing. But then I heard my mother crying in her sleep. And I stayed. The billionaire's name never appeared. Not once. His distance protected him. My proximity destroyed me. I learned something brutal. Power doesn't need to be present to be effective. It just needs to have been close once. Then something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. No sender name. Just a sentence. You weren't meant to survive this. That sentence changed something in me. Fear turned into clarity. Because if survival wasn't expected, then surviving became rebellion. Choosing to live. I read that sentence over and over. You weren't meant to survive this. At first, it felt like a threat. Then it felt like a challenge. And finally, it felt like permission. Permission to stop running. Permission to stop begging for fairness. Permission to stop protecting people who never protected me. I stopped explaining myself to those who had already judged me. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I focused on one thing. Staying alive without becoming bitter. I started writing. Not to publish. Not to expose. Just to remember who I was before illusion rewrote me. I wrote every detail, every meeting, every instruction, not as revenge, as record, because truth doesn't shout, it waits. Days turned into months. Life got smaller before it got clearer. I worked wherever I could. No titles, no promises, just honest labor. And for the first time in years, I slept. My mother noticed the change. You're lighter, she said. I wasn't happier, but I was real again. I stopped fearing his name. Stopped avoiding his shadow. Power feeds on reaction. Silence starves it. One day, I was contacted by someone else. Another casualty. Different story. Same man. We didn't plan anything. We just talked. And in that conversation, the illusion cracked. I realized I wasn't alone. I was just isolated on purpose. That's how control works. Separate. Silence. Erase. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. And distance is something billionaires can't buy once they lose control. Recovery wasn't dramatic. It was boring. And boring felt safe. But safety brings clarity. And clarity brings memory. And memory brings responsibility. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. I knew then. My story wasn't over. It was just changing shape. The choice to speak. Months passed. I rebuilt pieces of my life. But the silence was louder than ever. I asked myself, what happens when the victim stays quiet? When the story is swallowed? I thought about the billionaire. About the illusion he created. About the people he used. And about me, what I had become. Speaking out wasn't easy. Fear still whispered, what will they say? Who will believe you? Are you ready to lose everything again? But silence felt like surrender. And surrender was no longer an option. I reached out to a journalist. A careful one. Someone who listens without judgment. I told my story. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. The article was published quietly. Not on the front page. Not with headlines. But it was there. And that was enough. The response surprised me. Messages from others. Stories like mine. Pain wrapped in different words. But the same pattern. The billionaire's world trembled. Not because of me. Because of us. People who had been silent started speaking. He called me. Calm. Measured. Why do you do this? I answered honestly. Because truth is stronger than illusion. There was silence. Then, you don't know what you're risking. I smiled. Yes, I do. That was the moment I truly lost everything. But I gained something no billionaire could ever buy. Freedom. Aftermath and new beginnings. The aftermath wasn't cinematic. No dramatic court cases. No instant justice. Just slow, grinding days. I lost old friends, but found new ones. People who valued truth over convenience. Reputation rebuilds one honest moment at a time. I started small. Jobs that paid bills, not dreams. I learned to find pride in steady work. And that was enough. My mother smiled again. Her faith never wavered. Her hope returned slowly. We rebuilt what was broken with patience. I stopped hiding. Not from others, from myself. I faced my mistakes, accepted my pain, and forgave what I could not change. Freedom wasn't about wealth. It was about being able to sleep without fear. To look in the mirror without shame. To speak my truth without trembling. The billionaire? He's still out there, making deals, building illusions. But I'm no longer part of his story. I learned the hardest lesson of all. Not all that glitters is gold. Not all who shine are free. And sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Lessons beyond loss. Looking back, I see how carefully the illusion was built. How slowly it wrapped around me, soft and silent like fog. I see how hope was used as bait. How loyalty became a trap. And how silence was the loudest command. I learned that power isn't always visible. Sometimes, it lives in whispers. In unspoken rules. In promises broken without words. I also learned something more important. That contentment is a treasure no money can buy. That peace inside is stronger than any fortune. And that freedom is worth losing everything for. Not everyone sees these truths. Many chase gold and forget their souls. Many trade honesty for illusion. Many believe power is the answer when it is often the question. But for those who have lost it all, the question is simple: what comes next? For me, the answer was unexpected. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't wealth. It wasn't fame. It was healing. Quiet healing. Slow healing. One day at a time. I stopped asking why me. I started asking, what now? And the answer came in small moments. A smile. A morning without fear. A day lived honestly. That's when I understood. Life isn't about holding on. It's about letting go. Letting go of illusions. Letting go of people who break you. Letting go of dreams that hurt more than they help. Rebuilding identity. Rebuilding wasn't about starting over. It was about remembering who I was before the illusion. Pieces of me had been buried deep. But they were still there. I reconnected with old passions. Books I had forgotten. Dreams I had abandoned. Simple joys I had dismissed as childish. I learned to trust myself again. To listen to my own voice without fear. To say no when something felt wrong. To walk away without guilt. The people who mattered stood by me. Not because I was perfect, but because I was real. And realness has a quiet strength that no money can buy. I found new purpose. Not in power. Not in wealth. In honesty. In kindness. In living true to who I am. Each day was a small victory. Each step forward a testament to survival. And survival is not easy. But it is possible. I tell this story not for sympathy. Not for blame. But as a warning and a hope. Because sometimes, losing everything is the beginning of finding yourself. The future beyond pain. Pain changes us. Sometimes it breaks us. Sometimes it builds us. I chose to be built. Because pain taught me to see clearly. To value what truly matters. I learned that strength is not about fighting others. It's about facing yourself, your fears, your doubts, your mistakes, and still choosing to move forward. The future is uncertain, but that uncertainty is freedom. Freedom to create, freedom to change, freedom to live on my terms. I don't know what tomorrow holds. But I know who I am. And that is enough. If my story reaches someone who feels trapped, remember this: you are not alone. Your pain is not the end. It's the start of a new chapter. Sometimes, the darkest nights bring the brightest dawns. Hold on, keep moving, and most of all, keep believing in yourself. Thank you for listening. This is not the end. It's only the beginning. Closing reflection. The beginning. As I finish this story, I want to leave you with one thought. Life is fragile. Life is unpredictable, but within that fragility lies incredible strength. We all face illusions. People, places, promises that don't last. We all lose things, sometimes everything. But losing everything does not mean the end. It means a chance to build something new. Your past does not define you. Your mistakes do not imprison you. Your pain can be the soil from which your courage grows. So, if you ever feel lost, remember my story. Remember that even when the world turns its back, even when the silence is deafening, there is always a way forward. Hold on to your truth. Hold on to your heart, because that is what makes you free. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. This is my truth, and maybe, just maybe, it can help you find yours. Thank you for listening and your love. Subscribe Mackya Tales for more real and emotional stories.